It was on Monday morning, just about 1 o'clock, that the great Titanic began to reel and rock. Then the people began to cry, saying, Lord, I'm going to die. It was sad when that great ship went down. It was sad when...
Hey folks, it's Ron with On Fire Concerts, and we are here today with a member who I'm believed to be a member of the first family of country music, Miss Roni Stoneman.
Well, thank you. You're right, but it isn't Miss. I get married every now and then.
Well, I mean, every now and then, but that's okay.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to tell Barbara, be quiet. That's my daughter. Okay.
Well, let's start with talking about the Stoneman family. This is a unique interview today because normally I deal with an artist. We talk about the artist and just the artist, but in your case, it's a family, and the history that the Stoneman family has is just amazing to me. We'll start back, with your dad was Ernest Stoneman, that most people know as Pop Stoneman.
Yeah, well, you had to be Pop with so many children.
And you had, you had 23 kids. Your mom and dad had 23 kids.
Yeah, but there was 5 sets of twins, so that hurried it up. But Mom and Dad liked each other a lot. They held hands and everything. It was the everything that got them in trouble.
And I mean, 23 kids, so if you had 23 siblings...
But I didn't have 23 siblings, but Mama had lost quite a few when she was in the mountains of Virginia, when her and Daddy, the mountains, they didn't have things like penicillin and stuff to stop the bronchitis or bronchopneumonia or pneumonia. So she lost a lot, many children, but there was 15 of us lived to be of age in one room.
But growing up with just you and 14 others, that has to be very interesting because I was telling you earlier, I have 3 brothers and a sister, and I mean, that's hard enough, much less 15.
Well, I had all my family played music, Daddy would make the instruments because everybody would ask Daddy. We played a lot at the colleges or universities in California and Berkeley when the natives were not resting. It was the long beard, all of this, and the long hair. But anyway, the universities, we had to play, we did when we were little, to Pop Stoneman and his Little Pebbles, we were called. And the little ones with Daddy, there was 4 or 5 bands going at one time in Maryland and D.C. We played, my older brothers played music, I guess, my older ones, to get drunk by, because that's all you had to play for.
That's all you had to play for.
Yeah, they were not alcoholics, they were all drunkards. Out there in the audience, they didn't go to the meetings. That was funny. But anyway, but it was really unusual because it was one room, and Daddy would make our instruments, and this is true, and he'd tune them up and put them on a bed, honest. And they say, now, leave that alone. I'm not finished with it yet. And they said, it better be not out of tune when I come back home from work. Y'all better not touch that. Of course, we right into it as soon as he pulled out of the driveway.
Well, when you say don't do something to a child...
I know, that's why Daddy did, I guess.
He knew what to get you to practice.
I know, we had to have it in tune because to this day I can't use a tuner on my banjo or guitar because... it's a waste of time sometimes, but a lot of people depend on that little thing that clamps.
Right.
They call it. I think it's called a shark or something. But we never had one. I remember playing with the Glazer brothers at a fair, and they had this thing, a little thing, and he was back there tuning. And I said, "Van," and this is true. I said, "Van," to my brother. I said, "Come and look at this thing." And every time they hit a string, the needle would go like that. I said, "It's really different." And Van said, "Oh, yeah." So I said, "Hit it, Tom Paul." I said, "Tom Paul, hit that one string. And look, Van, it goes right in the middle when it's in tune." That's neat, and that's different, see. So we never had any tuning.
Nobody taught you nothing.
No, we didn't have it, honey. We were lucky we had an outhouse in the back. That's another story.
That's another story that we may have to get to.
No, I don't know if the people out there want to hear that mess.
Well, I know in I think it was, if I read, where in 1924 your dad had heard, Pop Stoneman had
Yeah.
heard a gentleman named, I believe, Henry
Whitaker.
Whitaker
Henry
plays
Whitaker.
sang something on the radio
Yeah.
in 24.
It wasn't a radio. They didn't have a radio.
We heard the record.
He heard a recording in an old store.
Okay, and he said he could do
in
that.
Galax. Henry Whitaker. He was a friend of Daddy's, I believe, that worked with him at the mill in Galax when he was very young.
Oh, okay.
The old nuts, the mill. There.
I didn't know if they knew each other, but your dad said he could do that as good as.
No, he said, Hattie, that don't sound good. That feller just don't sound good. He sings it from his nose. And he said, I can do better. Mama, she had 10 children then. And she said, well, Ernest, go on over to New York. I'll keep with the children. You go on to New York and you try out and see how good you are. And said, a man without a dream is not a man.
Well, that makes sense.
So she said, you just go on and go on up there. And he did, and he came back with a contract from Edison Cylinders. Edison, that was Thomas Edison. But he recorded, he said, and Daddy wasn't a liar, because he said he had a lot of youngins, but not one of them was good enough to be a good liar. They weren't smart enough, because you got to remember what you said. So anyway, he went up to New York, and he got a contract with Edison. But before that, there was a wire. They used a wire or something. It was 1914. And he made a wire recording. And he was in New York, and he said, I put a dime, in New York they had these booths like phone booths,
Right.
but it was where you could hear the singer, and it was him. He said, I heard my own record, and there he was, a young man, right from the mountains. His father was a preacher, an old mountain preacher, and his mother died when he was 8 years old. But can you imagine putting a dime in and hearing your own voice?
And
it wasn't yours.
And
You didn't have it with you.
That would have to be, a feeling that you can only imagine what you felt.
I know it. I talked to him a lot about it.
Now,
and
you and I have spoke. I know your dad went in 24, Bob did, and he came back, but then he went back in 25, I believe it was, and
Yeah.
he did another recording, which,
he did.
by the way, became the first million seller.
I wish it was the sinking of the Titanic. He wrote it in 1914, and this is what Daddy said. And Daddy wasn't a liar because there wasn't no sense in it, he said. But in 1914, he wrote the song called The Sinking of the Titanic. Some of you folks might know it. Now, when we played UCLA, the college kids, we had our own workshop there. And so, and they was asking us all kinds of questions, and, it was really unusual. But anyway, you have that, all that history, and then they ask you questions that you don't know anything about. How come the frets are that far from the banjo, and how come what kind of strings you use? This is a college kid. But they would sing the sinking of the Titanic like this. It was sad, oh it was sad, when that great ship went down to the bottom of the sea. And I would...
So what are they singing?
I said, Daddy, they're saying it wrong. Daddy said, I know it. I don't know what's wrong with them youngins. That's what Daddy said at UCLA.
And so he didn't know what was wrong with it.
No, he didn't, but this is the way he did. It was sad when that great ship went down. It was sad when that great ship went down. Husbands and wives, little children lost their lives. It was sad when that great ship went down.
That, folks, was the first million seller in country music.
It sure was.
And you have something that I want you to show us.
Well, excuse me.
Well, okay. No, I didn't ask her about her CDs.
No, people I go play, they're so darling. I love them so much. The audience, Daddy said, daggone it, that's what you're here for, is entertain those folks, not to entertain yourself. And we'd end up entertaining ourselves along with the audience.
Well, you have to do that because it ain't no fun if you don't.
Daddy, you have to have fun in going from one place to the next. You don't even, we're playing the Louisiana Hayride, a long time ago. And Van said, it's so good to be here in Houston, Texas. I said, Van, we're not in Houston, in Louisiana. So that's a sample.
He said, that's just a sample, but that you have to have fun, and it makes life is fun.
Yeah, but you see, he didn't remember where we were at.
But
were
y'all
so
played
much.
everywhere. I mean,
Oh, I know. Every college in the United States.
y'all played, didn't the Stonemans, if I'm not wrong, you played the White House and Smithsonian?
We played the Smithsonian, and they got. When I started learning to play the banjo, Daddy made me a banjo with a neck that long, and he put carved the neck out, and I would go. This is what the people in the town. We lived in Carmody Hills. Roy Clark said, "Here's Roni Stoneman from Carmody Hills," and that was about the size of it. But I said, "Roy, don't say that. Not Carmody. It's Carmody." But he would call me Ronald J. But that's another story because I remember Roy. But anyway, getting back to what you asked me about, I got so many stories I get kind of freaked out.
Well, there's just a history. There's just amazing.
Yeah.
There's amazing history. But let's show the folks the cylinders.
Okay, I got the cylinder. I brought it for Ron to see because I didn't know if he knew anything about cylinders.
A little before my time, but I mean,
Well,
I've heard about them.
Get on your paper, I know that. Well, anyway, I'll get the cylinders there over yonder. I carry them in a little case because they're very special to me because it's my claim to fame, what we did. Roni Stoneman and the Dids. We did this and we did that, so many dids. Donna said, "Ronnie, I don't want to do another interview anywhere because I've interviewed out."
Well, that's I can only imagine.
These are cylinders. This right here, and I'll play the cylinder, and this is called the sinking of the Titanic. Right here is the sinking. Whenever you get a chance, you can.
I will zoom in. I'm gonna take photos of these
You gotta
folks,
carry it
and
like
we will
this,
put it on
like
there also to show.
Don't touch that side if you can help it.
But these are what the cylinders came in.
Can you imagine buying that? And it says you can take it and show them if you don't mind.
Yeah, and I'll zoom in on it, but it's a sinking of the Titanic. And
It says E.V. Stoneman right here, right there.
and we are going
The
to
first
be
million seller.
the first million seller, and not
Country.
this thing is it's just history, folks. All these are, but this is the first million seller.
Yeah, and when I play it, I promise, I've played it for other folks, and they would have tears in their eyes.
But that is just
So-
amazing that you still have those.
Yes, honey, I did a wrong thing. I did. I took it to Bristol a long time ago. It wasn't, at the museum. They got a beautiful museum up there. Any of y'all ever get a chance to go in that part of the country, you go up to Bristol, Virginia, and you'll see where the first recordings of the Carter family in 27, and the Stoneman, of course, Daddy had been recording about 6 years prior to that. But anyway, y'all get a chance to go up there because that is that's the true the true country music museum, the truest one. There is no girls with dresses like wide belts. Whatever. But, and I guess it's because we didn't have the arthritis in the first place.
Well, that's the way,
Yes, but these are all cylinders.
And those folks are just, I mean.
Some of them, I can't believe this. A drummer that played with the four guys, the mother of the drummer came and brought me this. I like to pass out. I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. And it's got the original cover on this little thing.
But I mean, you think about it though, Ronnie. How many people would know what these were if you run across one?
Well, honey, that's why I like to show them a little. I am sorry to act like I'm bragging on the family or Daddy, but by golly, he was an old mountain boy. Never been out of them hills in his whole life. His mother died of childbed fever when his brother was born, and he read everything he could. He was a very smart man, Pop Stoneman, my dad, and Mommy was very smart, but she was mountain trained. She was beautiful, a girl that in the 20s they made lots of money, and the Depression hit. Daddy had signed a lot of banknotes for his friends up there in Galax. He would come in from being on the road with Mommy up in New York. They had a couple of ladies staying at the house taking care of the children. And so anyway, he'd come in And they would come to the house and they'd say, Ernest, I want to meet you tomorrow and show you some land that I could buy, have more tobacco on or cotton or whatever. And Daddy would say, okay. He said, well, they told me at the bank that they wouldn't let me have the land unless you signed. Well, Daddy's friends, and he said, oh yeah, I'll sign for you. And I know how it is to want property and get that land over yonder. So next thing you know, the Depression hit in 29. By 1933, Daddy had 0, and he had 10 children. And he had come to Washington, D.C., like a lot of people from the mountains of Virginia and from parts of North Carolina. They went to, Detroit.
Right.
But a lot of them came into Washington, D.C. and brought their talents and their instruments with them and played their home songs that they did for each other. They'd play for frolics, go to each other's cabin.
Well,
that's a true story.
Well, your dad went back to Washington, but then I don't remember if it was if it was Victor or who, but they sent him back and wanted him to go eventually to Atlanta.
Oh yes, Mr. Peer called Dad. I'm not called him. I wrote him or something. And Daddy talked to him. I guess they had a phone then. I don't know. I guess in the 20s, late 20s. But he said, yep. He said, Ernest, I'm going into Atlanta looking for some talent. This is true, gang. So help me, or I wouldn't say it, because ain't no sense. Like Daddy said, ain't no sense in lying. But Daddy said he got this call, for him to bring. Daddy said, Mr. Peer. He said, Mr. Peer, no, you come to Bristol. There's abundance. That's what Daddy used, abundance of talent in these hills. You need to come to Bristol. And he said, well, bring them up here. He said, no, these are mountain people. They ain't going to leave their home and come up there. He said, you come to Bristol. And Mr. Peer went to Bristol. First he said, Ernest, how you going to get them to Bristol? And he said, leave that to me. He said, just leave it to me, because I will get them there. And Daddy ended up building the stage on 12th Street there in Bristol, against the furniture store on the Virginia side. Because in Bristol there's a Virginia and there's Tennessee.
Tennessee, right.
So you had to go on this side, the left side. The right side was Tennessee. So Daddy said, I'll get them there. So he went down to the newspaper.
Right.
And he took all his canceled checks from Pierre or Victor.
Right.
It used to be Victor then. And all his canceled checks, and showed the people, had a picture of this canceled checks of the money he could make, and those people in those hills could make. So they did that, and that's where they met the Carter family. The Carter family, Sarah and A.P. Carter and Mother Maybelle, they came down and played. Daddy did 26, and with Mommy, 26 tunes in Bristol that day. 26 recordings for Bristol. Daddy got him to come, and Daddy, he went to all his, trying to get his friends and people that he knew that played music. He was trying to help everybody.
It's remarkable that your dad is basically they did start the Carter family, and
I hate to say that.
Jimmy Rogers.
Yeah, Jimmy Rogers was there, and Daddy introduced him to Mr. Peer. Daddy put it in a newspaper that says, Mr. Peer is coming to Bristol to look for talent. He said, so come on down, and this is the money that I made. That's what Daddy had put in the paper. So that they were reading. Now this is what was in the book. That Johnny Cash and June at Mother Maybelle, they were being interviewed. And it's country music. It was a country music magazine. And she said, yep, this is Mother Maybelle. We were having our last piece of country ham. It was on a Saturday, and we were having our last piece of country ham. And he said, A.P. Carter got up from the table and sat there by the fire in a rocking chair. And he said, he was reading the paper, what Daddy had put in there, went and showed everybody, trying to get them to come to Bristol, the mountain people. That's down in southwest Virginia. So he said, he took the paper, the newspaper. Now this is what Mother Maybelle said. Had the paper there, and he said, we're going to go over to Bristol. He's telling Sarah Carter. He said, this feller, you know, Ernest Stoneman, he's got a talent scout to come from New York. And we're going to go over there. And Sarah said, this is what Mother Maybelle said, gang. Said, oh, we'll never make the money that man did. Duh, you know. But if Daddy had been smart, he wouldn't have introduced him.
You know,
I'd have went on to Georgia.
well, your dad was, you know, something I found about your dad that
Yeah.
I thought very interesting, because the way life works sometimes, though, after, you know, and like, I think it was, your dad actually won a game show on NBC.
Oh yeah, that was,
in the
yeah.
50s.
It was called The Big Surprise.
And I mean, and he won back then for what, $10,000
No,
or
it was
something?
20
20?
30,000.
And that was a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money nowadays.
And
but
you know
then-
what he did with it? He bought Mama the ring that he had for her before the Depression. She had to sell it in the Depression because times got hard. I said, and that the jobs were few all through Tecumseh Valley. Times got rough. So Mama had to sell her ring that Daddy had bought her when he married her. And when he made the money, he bought her this beautiful ring. It was a square of blue stone.
Well,
And but he bought her another one to replace it when he won the contest, answering geography questions.
that was just, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's true. That you have something, you lose it all, and then you gradually come
Get it
back.
back, but you never come back with a lot of youngins.
Right. But the
Yeah.
youngins, the same year your dad won that, if I'm not wrong, the same year.
We were playing in D.C. in the Skull Orchards. You know what a Skull Orchard is? Let me tell you, gang, I'm not joshing. That was the honky tonks, the severe honky tonks. And that was the only place you could hear country music because nobody trusted it. But the people from Southwest Virginia, North Carolina came into D.C. The people from Kentucky, and they went to Detroit looking for work there. But the people from Southwest Virginia and some Maryland, they would all bring in music right into D.C. And Ron, that's where good music was heard. That's where Roy Clark's people are from. It was the best music there was in Washington, D.C. I got all this information at the house.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't even dream that nowadays, you know.
I know, honey, but we had to pay our dues in order. And Scott, my brother, the fiddle player, you can find that on YouTube, you know, that we hung fiddling. He was the world's greatest, and to this day, he died in 72, and it was because of drinking. He had, his drinking problem, and he died like Keith Whitney did,
Yeah.
And that was sad. We really missed Scott because Scott encouraged each one of us to play. And when I was playing the banjo, like I was telling you, Daddy made my banjo, and the neck was this long. Then the next one was that long, and then it got to be I had to sell the banjo. Last banjo he made for me, I had to, trade it in for the banjo, the Gibson Master Tone. In those days, if you had a Gibson Master Tone, you could play. They would say you're only as good as your instrument. But when I was little, this is what, for the neighborhood, people would see me. I was barefooted, had an old raggy dress on, I tore the hem out of pitching horseshoes. And they would say, and I'd go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 with the banjo, the neck. I told Daddy I was more interested in the right hand, getting the picking good done. And I'd go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And after a while, I could do it without, breaking the speed. And I told Daddy, and the people in the neighborhood, the boys, here comes that retarded, not needed dumb hillbilly with that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They would laugh at me, but I kept at it.
But it's amazing. I mean, the kids of after your dad won that, like I said, the game show thing. Later on, some of the kids won an Arthur Godfrey
Oh yeah, that was the gap. They had the bluegrass champs, and the reason they were called, there was different groups. We had 4 to 5 bands in my family. Like I said, the older brothers played music to drink by. But they'd send them up a drink if they picked for them. You know how it is. Well, I guess you should know.
Well, I would know, yeah.
Oh yeah, heel. Don't lie. But anyway, and I know you're a good Christian man. Look.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but you are, and you can tell you're an honest guy. But anyway, we would go to play and with the instruments and play those places. And Daddy said, watch, and Scott would say, now watch that audience, Ronnie, because if they get to twisting around and squirming in their seats, you better get off the stage. Leave them wanting, not overdo yourself.
Right.
And Daddy said, now remember, you're not playing for yourself, you're entertaining the people out there in the audience. That's the way Daddy raised us. It was the audience that was the most important, not us.
Right, and that's a difference in just singing and being entertainers.
Yeah, you find something in your soul to entertain them with.
Right.
Now you mentioned Jerry Lee Lewis. Is that an entertainer or not? Wow.
He's still an entertainer.
What I'm saying, he's still entertaining you, and he's in almost a wheelchair. But he is absolutely marvelous. But his action for himself, it's amazing he lived this long. I mean, living still and doing good.
I told him the other day when I was fortunate enough to see Jerry again at his home, and I said, of all the country music greats, and you got the $1 Million Quartet thing, and the last man standing is Jerry Lee.
Of course, yes.
And I said, that's just so remarkable. And to be, and in that group, and, but then, we were when y'all won the Godfrey.
Oh yeah, those are the days. You know how we did that? We were playing at a honky tonk in D.C., 12th and New York Avenue, right next to the bus station, downtown Washington. Anytime you're in a city like Washington or a big city and you're by the bus station, it's not one of those little darling places you could take your mother to. You don't want that, because the boys would bet on how many fights they're going to have that night. But I remember we played there for a long time, and then we get a call that we could do the Arthur Godfrey show. The man that owned this place, his name was Sam Bumstein, and he was marvelous. He gave the Stonemans work, and his brother owned, his brother Joe, I think it's Joe, he was across the street, and Charlie Daniels played a place across the street from us called the Rocket Room. And Charlie would take this is true, Charlie Daniels would take his break so he could, at a time that we were on stage, he would time it so he could come over and watch our show and watch Scott fiddle. And then, those were the days. Dear me, God was with us the whole time. Mama prayed, and she'd pray for my brothers every night, and all of us. She'd be down on her knees, and when she died, before she died, I said, Mommy, you got calluses on your knees. You prayed so hard. You're like a nun. And Mommy said, well, Lord have mercy, honey. I said, you got calluses from praying for us so much. We'd be out picking.
And that's just amazing. But then from that, I believe, is then after that, y'all ended up with the TV show called Those Stonemans.
You know how we got that? That was another story.
Those Stonemans, that was a neat name.
The singing, swinging, stomping, sensational Stonemans. Yeah, we got that name from out at L.A., UCLA, when we played the university there 2 or 3 times. The college kids at UCLA loved Daddy. They loved Daddy. We played at all the coffee houses there. And they loved my dad. And Daddy would tell him it was during the Vietnam War, even though people say it wasn't, it was a war. It was awful. But anyway, the boys, the college kids, they didn't understand that. And Daddy said, let me tell you something. He would point at the crowd. He said, every one of you, I talked to some of you young folks and you just don't understand. And he would fuss, and they'd say, yes, Pop. They would follow him, just like the Pied Piper, those students at UCLA. We did a whole lot of stuff, honey, since, I got so many memories. And I remember so much. Every now and then I struck, as Grandpa Jones said, I struck a snag. But he'd say I struck a snag. And I met him, all right. We won the contest at Constitution Hall with Connie Begay. A man by Connie Begay. He was a disc jockey there in D.C. And so he decided to take it to the that place I told you.
Smithsonian?
No, it wasn't the Smithsonian. We did that much later. Let me see. Constitution Hall.
Okay.
At in Washington. So that's when Daddy came in and sat at the end of the table and told Mama there was a show going on, a contest going on. And the person who won it was a man by the name of Connie Begay was putting it on, and the person who won it would get on television about 50 weeks or so. And so Daddy told Mama he was wanting to go down there and get in that. And she said, well, Ernest, go across the street. She was popping beans in the pan because we didn't have running water. We had a tent for a roof because that depression knocked Daddy down, Because during the Depression, you didn't buy records or anything.
No.
You were lucky enough to get a potato or some bread. And so Daddy had a lot of children, and Mama was a praying mother, and Daddy was a good Christian man. He lived a Christian life. He just wanted everybody to be good, But he went across the creek to my brothers, my older brothers, to get them to play with him. And he came back, and I remember so well. He sat at the head of the table, and I walked over by him. I'd follow Daddy around a lot. And he said, she said, Ernest, what's the matter? And he said, well, Hattie, they won't go with me. And she says, and why not? Mama had a spirit. I thought she was going to take a hickory stick over there and straighten them out. But Daddy said, because they said I'm old-fashioned now, and I don't have electric instruments. And they got their buddies, and they're going to go down and take the prize at Constitution Hall. That's what it was. Constitution Hall. So Mama said they did they? Said, well, Ernest, how long do we have? And he said, 3 months. And she said, well, get to making the young'uns some more instruments. We're going to go down and take the prize. And we went down, and they opened the door. We had that old covered wagon of a thing Daddy had. He bent the bars, and he put the canvas over it, and he had his tool chest on each side, like a pickup truck. He made it was a rumble seat, but he made it into a pickup. And he had that bars like a covered wagon going across the west. And all of us kids in there with our homemade instruments, gang. And they opened the doors and they said, and here they are, the Stoneman family. Mama had made me and Donna some little feed sack dresses. You don't remember, but they were colorful. They had little, flowers in them. So not burlap, honey. Burlap's a whole new ball game.
The feed store.
Feed sacks. Yeah, they used during the Depression years. They found out that those material people were making shirts and blouses out of them and little dresses for their children. And Mama made us one to go play on the contest. Daddy told me to sing because I didn't have a banjo, any kind of instrument. I just sang. And I was 4.5 years old. But my brothers went on first. There was about 100 and some bands that night, okay? I ain't just joshing. And I remember they opened the doors and there was marble floors. And I went, hot dog, I can slide on this. Because in the house we just had that one room and you could just run around in circles. You couldn't run and slide, And my brother Billy was in the Pacific during the war, and he sent Mama some money home to buy me and Donna a pair of little patent leather slippers. So she got them, and they made us that dress. And when I opened that door, and I was always hyper, they say AD, some kind of trouble, they all got a big name for it. AD, and I said, well, no. I told Sam Lavello, the producer of Hee-Haw, I said, I got the whole alphabet.
You ain't ADD, you're the whole alphabet.
ABDCFGHI,
I'm all of them.
I'm all of them. People had to take drugs to be like I am. And I'm 83 now, so you can just imagine how I was when I was little. praise the Lord. But I went sliding. I called them no shoes, and the bottoms were slick. And I went diggity, 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 slide, this is cool. And I looked over to my left, and there was a man in there, he was gluing his mustache and his eyebrows on. And the old days, they had Maybelline, where you could just take a little drawer, but it was, instead of black where you could do your eyelashes, it was white. And I said, I wonder what he's up to. And I had a crooked eye. Do you remember my eye was crooked? It went that way. It was called walleye. This one here was injured at birth, and the muscles messed up. But, it went this way. So I got up, I got to looking at it, and just me and him, and this dressing room door was open and everything. And I had mirrors and these big round lights all over. And I said, I wonder what he's doing. He was in the mirror doing this to his mustache and his eyebrows, and he glued on some, making his beard, his whisker, came down like this then. And I pushed a chair up there and got up on the dressing table and crawled over there and looked at him right in the face, trying to say, what in the cat hair, I thought to myself, is he doing? And I looked in it, and he was putting that on, and I said, why is he gluing his mustache and eyebrows on? And then Mama said, Lord, have mercy in the name of Jesus. Where are my children? And she said, I gotta find Ronnie. And she went hunting down there, and she turned onto her left, and she said, get out of that room and quit bothering that poor old man. And Grandpa Jones said, that's all right, Miss Stoneman, I'll take care of her. He said, just get your fiddle. And he took me down to the little concession stand, and I went walking with him, and I was looking at his boots, the one he used on Hee-Haw. And I said, he's like us. His shoes don't fit him either. Because the school would send us down a box of shoes for us to pick out what fit us. And sometimes we had to get them big old ones and tie them to our feet. We had fun though. We had our music, and we had Mama's prayers and Daddy's hard work.
And it was just amazing, the story of the Stoneman family, folks. We haven't even scratched the surface today with this here. This is just, I've gotten into this in the past few months, and I got to looking at, and the more you think you know, and you really don't know, and then you think, and for Ronnie, to talk to Ronnie and remember dates and names and... Honey,
I remember so much, and I get them, it's like a bucket full of mixer, it's like a mixture. You get your mind going, and you think about all the fun things. Like we were at that big long table I was going to tell you about. And I remember we were all sitting on the side of the table. It was a bench against the wall. And we were all lined up there, and Scott sat right where you're sitting in the area to get away from Daddy, because whenever you spill something or knock something over, he'd go right here to the back of your head. Yes, right there. And he'd come up with it. So Scott didn't sit next to him either, and I had to be over there. So then there was, I think it was 4 school officials knocked at the door, and Mama said, now, come in. Said, we don't have a place for y'all to sit down. And it was from the school authorities. And they said to my daddy and my mother, Mommy was waiting on the table. And he said, Mr. Stoneman, he said, none of your children are scholastic. And Daddy said, yeah, that's a shame. That is a shame, I know. And he said, that's a shame. I wish they were, but they're not. And he said, and one of the men with the 3-piece suit on standing there, he said, but we gave 6 of them a test. And the District of Columbia wants to send them to the Juilliard School in New York. And Daddy's sitting there, and he said, well, that's a mighty fine school, and we're proud you came down. We thank you very much for your time. He said, does any of you youngins want to go? I promise he said that. Now, you know how many parents would say, you're going,
Yeah,
but he said, any of you youngins want to go? And Scott said, we all looked at Scott. Now, he was the genius, and Jimmy, my brother, 13 months older than me, that's another story, 13 months older than me, he he was a genius. You could hit a piece of wood, and if it was a tone, he could tell you what pitch it was in. And it was just like that at the house, and it was always music, nothing else much. And we'd just play our instruments. We didn't have toys or nothing. And so, anyway.
So you traveled, though, as a singer?
Gotta tell you, got finished. So Scott pulled back from the chair like this, and he flopped up and he said, "No, Pop, we're going to stay here and help you feed us." All right. Now, time marches on. We're playing all these old sculptures. There was my older brother's band called the Stoneman Brothers. Then there was my other brothers. They would just, they'd get a buddy to fill in with them every now and then because they wanted to learn to play too. So then you had the last set. The Little Pebbles. We grew up a little bit. Pop Stoneman is Little Pebbles. Dinah said, "I was never a little pebble." And I said, "You were too, I remember." So it was really, then years passed. All the time passes on. Then we up in New York doing the Tonight Show. I think Jimmy Dean invited us up because he was filling in for Johnny Carson. So we go up there and they had a big room, had a break, and there was a big room full of fried chicken and stuff, and we were hungry. And my sister Donna and I just sat there and looked at it because we didn't want to interfere. And he went to people on the show. Well, it was funny because next thing you know, my brothers ate all the chicken and they had to send for more chicken. And then a limousine came. I didn't know the name of this old stupid looking car. I thought it was dumb looking. Big old long, and Daddy said, "Well, get your instruments. They're going to take us up somewhere." And I said, "But Daddy, we don't want to go over there in that old stupid looking car." If it had been an old pickup truck, we'd all dove in, But we got in and we went over to this big building and they opened the doors again. It was wooden floors. And we walked in and I heard some music on my left. And I went in there and I said, "Oh, that's something I never heard before." And they had this man with silver hair doing this with a stick to these young people. And they were playing good. They had it down pat. So I said, "I want to stay here and listen to them." So I snuck off and went in there. Then the manager came and grabbed me by the arm. I loved the flute. I thought that was the prettiest sound, but I couldn't understand how they got that sound. So he came in there and he said, "Get down there where the family is. I said, "I don't need to be down there. There ain't nobody down there." He said, "You got to tune." And I said, "I tune on the stage, you know that." So I had to go down there and there was nobody in there but us. And I said, "There ain't nobody here, so why should we be here like this? And where is this place?" I didn't know where it was at. Next thing you know, the doors opened and all these young people, well, they were our age, I guess, it seemed like, and it filled up real quick, and there was mirrors all around. I went, "Well, what was that all about?" So next thing you know, I said, "When do we start?" And Scott said, "Now." And he took off on that fiddle with Orange Blossom. And those people just sat there and they had their mouth open because I was watching them. I went, "Who are they?" And I was doing this, like, keeping up with Scott. That was a job. But then I found out it was a Juilliard school. We played for the Juilliard kids.
Where y'all didn't go.
Well, we wouldn't go. And when we should have went, it would have been really grand to learn to read music, even Dick and Jane, Dick and Jane. It was terrible. But then we went from there to, just picking and gritting everywhere else.
Well,
To Washington.
in I think it was 69 or somewhere around, should have been before, but your Pop Stoneman was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and that was nice.
And
But the best, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say this, because you can't cut your own throat, but I'm honest.
Well, that's all we've done.
We just got in at the International Bluegrass Association Hall of Fame.
Right.
We got that, but I had just finished writing a song about 2 weeks prior to that called "Just Another Plaque on the Wall." You can't make sandwiches with them or peanut butter and jelly. They're just there and you don't get paid for it. And I thought, what good are they? That's how
Right.
I mean, how about helping us out with the money? Because half the time our managers took the money all the time, and gave us a salary and we were just walking around, duh.
And then there are a lot of people you think that ought to be there. People get put there before they do, and then it's one thing after the other. But I think that if anybody ever deserved to be in the Hall of Fame,
I know, but they didn't put the Stonemans. What bothered me about the Hall of Fame plaque? Mama played with Daddy. She did, and she went to New York with him and did a lot of recordings. She's on here, these cylinders.
Right.
And she did a lot of recordings. He was the first country artist ever to record gospel, Daddy was. I found that out by a professor at a school in New York City. Told me, "You're Roni Stoneman?" "Yes, I am." He said, "Your dad, Ernest Stoneman?" "Yes, sir, and my mother's Hattie." And he said, "They're the first gospel music ever recorded was from your mom and dad."
What amazed me was, I was talking about Pop, but to finish that out, your mom and dad was in, my mind's, the word's gonna blank now, but Gretchen Records?
Oh, you mean Jeanette Records.
Yeah.
Well, that was in Indiana, Daddy recorded. You could record at one time for 8 different labels. And Daddy did. And he had to change his name, like Uncle Ben Hawkins was one. And you could do that in those days. He just made his rounds and got a lot of money. Then he got with Victor, you see.
And they were both put in their Hall of Fame, though, weren't they?
Up there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really nice. They treated us like we were stars or something.
Yeah.
They really treated us nice. And we stayed at this big building, and then we'd go over and pick a little bit. And they had the real cowboy of the Old West, and he was there singing his cowboy songs. Hello. That was Jimmy Rogers.
Oh.
So we did all that, and then we did so much.
There's just so much history there. Show us the poster.
All right, now this is Daddy. This is the ones that had our television show. We were on that. That was the group. This is me and Van, my brother's daddy. There's Jimmy, and this is my niece married this young man. He played with us, and Donna. There's Donna. Right there it is. You see it?
And I just love that name, how y'all on the front of that. I just love
The
it.
Stonemans. Syndicated television is now available. And we went into color. We had our first colors, I remember. And there's Scott. There's me, and there's Donna, and Van, and somebody wrote this up. I didn't. There we are. You can see right down here, right there, was when it was on our show. Some of our backdrops, it looked like a horror movie. Look at that, swelly to goodness, look at that old tree. Now, who in the cat hair would have put us out there in front of that old tree? That was our backdrop for our show.
I like the, just show the folks in front of it. The singing, swinging, stomping, sensational Stonemans.
Stoneman.
And like I said, Ronnie, the history is just, to me, and I want to step over and grab this thing and let you tell folks what it is.
I'm going to put it up.
Okay.
Can I put it up? I love y'all, but we'll be right back.
We'll be right back. And
It's up.
Okay.
we're going to play the first million seller
Of country music.
of country music, Singing of the Titanic.
Yeah, about Daddy.
And-
Or E.B. Stoneman. And now I'm going to show you folks if y'all interested in this kind of stuff. If you're not, just let us know. But right here it says E.B. Stoneman. Can you see it? The name? It's The Sinking of the Titanic. It was written, Daddy wrote it in 1914. The Titanic sunk in 1912.
I'm going to get out of your way and let you do that.
Well, I'm going to try to do this. I can't do it left-handed, see? And you got to push it in here. You got to push it in here. Get it in there good. And I'm going to play a little bit of the Titanic. And this was Thomas Edison. Now what? Can you hear it? And get over here, you gotta see it.
Those are so neat.
Daddy. On they come, moving out and by 1600 head to back. It was sad when that rain shook me down. It was sad when that rain. I remember singing beside Daddy when we were children.
You have heard that song many times, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
now
that is
this is the way it sounds without the horn. I gotta make sure that don't fall.
I got it.
Now this is the way it sounds, gang, without the horn. Now listen. Now, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute, it just needs, I can't get to it too easy, but you know a little sample of it. Now we're gonna stop it with this thing there.
Okay.
No.
That is just an amazing thing, and folks, we'll be right back to wrap up. Okay, folks, that was amazing. Edison player cylinder and hearing the sinking of the Titanic on a cylinder.
Yeah.
Where else do you get the chance to do that other than here and with Roni Stoneman and the
Honey,
Stoneman
yeah, let me
family?
tell you, I like you right away. I really did, because you know, sometimes you can tell a person from your own soul that they're good, and you are a good man.
Well,
And I thank you for allowing me and all the friends and neighbors out there for allowing me to show you.
well, tell the folks real quick that we're going to be checking out something shortly, but I want you to tell the folks what you've got coming up that you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you, golly. I'm gonna have my own show with my band, and it's gonna be on stream, and we're gonna have some great pickers. Honey, there's only me and Donna left, but Donna's gonna do it with me. I wanna do the Stoneman family's television show in the background. Me and Donna sitting, you know, like Hank Williams Jr., and he talked to it.
And his
to his
dad
dad. That's what I wanna do, and I wanna do it at a little theater. Duh.
And we're going to help you on that.
Will you really?
Well, I
honest?
most definitely will, I promise you.
Okay. You're the richest little hillbilly in Tennessee.
I don't know about Richard, but
No,
a
you're
hillbilly.
rich. You're rich, and you're a little hillbilly. So,
But I'm rich because I get to work with people like Roni Stoneman
well, honey, I appreciate it.
and Faye Chancellor, who's doing the video for us.
she's my manager.
She's all right. She's all right. She's trouble, but she's all right.
Well, she's been around the music business a long time. She was strung around it. I guess she went everywhere.
But we are so glad to bring this to you today. And
Thank you, Faye. She's
check
the
Roni Stoneman out on YouTube and stay tuned for her
It's not
TV.
YouTube. It's gonna be on stream. Is that YouTube?
Well, no, YouTube's got a bunch of the Stoneman family stuff on
I don't
YouTube.
get, but they don't have what I got. My band.
No.
My band's a kicker, gang. It really is.
But your band, when Ronnie's show starts streaming, she will let me know. I will share it and pass it on, and
Well, honey, thank you.
we'll get the word out to everybody.
Yes.
So y'all stay tuned for that, because you got history right here with this lady, and
Because I'm old. No.
she's I'm not gonna say how old she
No,
is,
no,
but,
no. I'm 83.
but if I can stand up when I'm 83,
Well, get on your paper. You will.
I'll be happy.
Just don't think old. You know.
That's it. If we
And
don't
get
think
married every now and then.
if we don't think we're old, we're not old. It's all a figment of your imagination.
No, except in the mornings I go, oh.
So, folks, we appreciate y'all checking this out today. Share it with your
Let me
friends.
tell them again. And don't forget, if y'all want to, you tune into my streaming show. Stream. And it's really, really going to be good. I'm going to work real hard to bring you a good product out there. And we're going to have streaming, and we're going to have that other one stand. What do you call it, Faye? Do you remember, Faye, what it's called? What is it called when you stand in front of and show the family show? And,
The screen, the
the screen,
big
yeah,
screen
the
projector.
green screen. I've already got the green screen, and we're going to bring that to you. Show you Donna, my sister. She still plays so good. She's 87, but she doesn't look it, and she is really energetic. And and she really plays marvelous. We were down in Raleigh, North Carolina. We were inducted into the International Bluegrass Hall of Fame. And let me tell you, they put the plaque that anybody else has got everywhere we went. I promise you, they got the best award you ever see. And when we get into that, when they announce it up there in Owensboro, Kentucky, I want you to come.
I will do that. If you be sure to let me know, and Faye knows how to reach
Yeah.
me. You know how to reach me.
Now, I would like for you to come to the family reunion, next one we have. That'll blow your hat to creek.
800 folks.
No, some of them were Scotland, England,
But
and they were from Scotland and Ireland. That's where we're from,
and I am honored to be asked. So anything Roni Stoneman asks, we will do. So
And tell your wife I love her too.
folks,
Let's get that straight.
thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Stay tuned. Share it with your friends.
Yeah.
Be on the lookout for Roni Stoneman.
Yeah.
See you next
When
time.
you're hot, you're hot. When you're not, you can't give it away. Keep that in mind.